methods of study in the sociology. Sociologists or scientists who study human social behavior, they contribute important knowledge about how people interact and varying social levels, from all small groups like family units to major institutions like the government or even entire culture. However, it is important for sociologists to understand the different research methods used in the social science so they can ensure their research produce accurate and the meaningful conclusion. Let's talk about the importance of the research in the sociology. Research is important in the sociology because it allows these professionals to ask important questions about the social structure and contribute new knowledge to their field of study. Sociology research may inform public policies that have a direct impact on the people living within a society. So it is important for the social researchers to use effective research methods that produce scientifically conclusive evidence. If we talk about some of the scientific methods, sociology research apply the scientific method to conduct their studies. The scientific method is a process by which researchers ask questions, identify problem, and seek answer to solve those issues. The steps of the scientific methods are: the first, you have to select the topic. For example, the sociologists want to study the reason of the stress among the banking sector employees. What they have to do, they have to define the problem, that stress is basically the reason. The topic could be the people or the employees of the banking sector, and the problem would be that they feel more stress on their or at their workplace because of the several factors. The factors could be, for instance, workload, bad behavior of the management, and you can say workload, bad behavior of the management, and the bad infrastructure of the workplace could be the reason of their stress. So research existing sources, we discuss later in this lecture that what does it mean. You have to define in step 4 the hypothesis, how you will define that. For example, we are talking about the factors that workload is the reason of the stress. So how we will make a hypothesis? Hypothesis is something that we will assume that it can happen. So how we make a hypothesis? We will define that workload has a significant influence on the employees stress, and then bad behavior of the management has a significant or have a significant influence on the employees stress, and the last one, that bad infrastructure has a significant influence on the employee stress. So we will make these hypotheses, and we will decide after the analyzing of the data that either these hypotheses were accepted or not. And what next? That choose a research method and design a study. That again, this is the part of our today lecture, and we will discuss later in this lecture. We have to collect the data, and to whom we will collect the data? We will collect the data from the employees of the different banking sectors, or not banking sector, of the different banks, and then analyze the result. We will define that that whatever we made a hypothesis, either all the data can support our hypothesis or not, and then we will find the report. We will prepare a report on these particular findings. Okay. The types of the data in the sociology research, there are basically 4 types of the data used in the sociology. The first one is the primary data. Primary data refers to the information collected directly by the researcher. This type of data often comes from survey, interviews, and the observational studies. If we talk about the secondary data is informed gleaned from the previous researcher in sociology. This might include data from books, government data, or the scholarly journals. If you make a comparison between the primary and the secondary data is something that you collect, and secondary data is something that is already published. Okay, this is the major difference between the primary and the secondary data. If we talk about the qualitative data refers to the information is challenging to quantify in a numerical terms. As name suggests, the qualitative, you can't even count that particular data. Researcher may often derive numerical data from the visual and auditory observation. This is something you can't even measure. While quantity, as name suggests, the quantity that you can measure. Quantitative data is the information in the numerical form. Researchers often collect this type of data through statistical method, especially surveys. So there are different studies which is used in the um sociology research. The first one is known as uh, cross-sectional study. If we talk about the cross-sectional study is a type of research design in which you collect data from many different individuals at a single point in a time. In cross-sectional research, you observe the variables without influencing them. For example, a cross-sectional study might be used to determine if exposure to specific risk factor might correlate with a particular outcomes. A research might collect cross-sectional data on the past smoking habit and the current diagnosis of the lung cancer, for instance. If we talk about the laboratory study, these are the experiments that take place in a controlled environment and aim to use the specific method to test a specific hypothesis. This is then used to find the cause and effect relationship between two variables. An example of Milgram's experiment on obedience, a car crash study strength, it is easier to replicate, that is copy laboratory experiment. This is because a standardized procedure is used. Strength, they allow for precise control of extraneous and independent variable. If we talk about the third study, which is known as field study, field research is qualitative method of the research concerned with understanding and interpreting the social interactions of the group of people, communities, and the societies by observing and interacting with people in their natural setting. The field researcher may use the qualitative interviews, participant observation, or the direct observations to collect data about the tribe's method of indicating the wealth and the relation between the members of the different social classes. The last one is observation studies. Observation studies involve the systematic, detailed observations of the behavior and the talk. For example, watching and recording what people say and do. They are sometimes referred to as a field research. The exact method are difficult to specify. They can include interview, checklist, questionnaires, and unobstructive method. In an observational study, researchers study how participants perform certain behavior or the activities without telling them what methods or behaviors to choose. For example, if a scientist wants to study how amount of water humans drink affect their diets, they might choose an observational study.